Vice President, Congress, Helen Johnson, Midland and East Coast Region, Standing Orders Committee Chair, moving SOC Report number 2. Withdrawn motions. The SOC has been informed that the following motions have been withdrawn. Motion 99, boycott the Daily Mail, standing in the name of Southern Region. Motion 263, Labour Party Democracy, young members, standing in the name of Southern Region. Motion 264, Labour Party Democracy, standing in the name of Southern Region. Motion 265, Labour Party Democracy Review, standing in the name of Southern Region. And motion 266, Labour Party Democracy, Wales and Scotland NEC reps, standing in the name of Southern Region. And finally, composite motion 3, GMB and the Trade Union Friends of Israel, was moved and withdrawn from the rostrum this morning. Bucket collections. The SOC has given permission for the following regions to hold bucket collections. To GMB Scotland for Guide Dogs for the Blind. The SOC recommends that this takes place at the close of this afternoon's business. To Midland and East Coast Region for Life for a Kid Sensory Centre in Hull. The SOC recommends that this takes place at the close of the afternoon session on Tuesday. And to North Western Irish Region for the Northern Ireland Children's Hospice. The SOC recommends that this takes place at the close of the morning session on Wednesday. Would regional secretaries please note that when the collections have taken place, the region should provide the SOC with a written note stating how much has been collected so that this can be reported back to Congress. President Congress, I move SOC Report number 2.
Thank you, Helen. Anyone want to speak against? No? I'll now take a vote then on SOC Report number 2. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. We'll now move on to the Leadership Awards for Equality. We launched these awards at Congress in 2009. So this is the 10th Congress where we recognise the exceptional work of our members in regions and branches. There are 4 categories with awards given to those who have inspired and championed various aspects of the equality agenda. This year, we had 3 categories fulfilled with nominations, Category 1, 2 and Category 4. You will find more details about the winners in a separate document in your wallets. It gives me great pleasure to announce the winners of each award and invite them to come up to the platform to collect their framed certificate and trophy. The first one is the most inspirational individual on equality in the GMB or at work is Paulo Fernandes of the Southern Region. One is the most, oh sorry, would you like to say a few words?
It's a high profile, seated here, high dignitary of GMB Congress. And my dear colleagues, I had been here in this stage in 2012, and this is my quite favorite, I hope, Brighton place. And I have received a Equality Award as well. I am from the W15 branch. So I am not taking much time of y'all. This award is, it was possible for me to get, it's not me alone, it's the teamwork of Southern Region, which include Regional Secretary Paul Maloney, our Wiltshire Swindon Branch Secretary Andy Newman, we call locally a Magic Man, and our Regional Organizing Officer, Active Officer, who never say no even for the armed social hours of weekend, Carroll Valley, who always come for our meeting whenever we ask. Now, I'm not wasting your much time, but I want to just highlight, everybody knows, last January 15, you know, the Carolians has been liquidated and no more. And my branch secretary always used to tell, GMB will be forever but one day Carillion will be no more. So this is a victory. Carillion is a corrupt country, a corrupt company, and they have looted in multi-billion pounds. So my dear colleagues, I'll just put you small things. They have done an investigation of the Carillion high-profile people, including CEO and the directors. After 4 months, they said there is no prima facie against them, and they are innocent. My dear colleagues, I just put a small thing. If you're an employee of a restaurant, due to some imitation, if he had a sandwich, he is losing his job. And the management got a power to blacklist the employee. So my question for media and for this Congress, anybody can move this motion. If this type of management for working for the public money and wasting billions of pounds, like a multinational company, Carillion did it, and they found nothing. So where those multi-billion pounds have been gone? So there should be a law to fix them, to put them on bar. So this is what I have to say. So I thank the standing committee for allowing me these few minutes to talk. So thank you very much, and once again, thanks for the standing committee and whoever nominated me for this award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. The second is the most inspirational regional equality forum, and that goes to the Southern Regional Equality Forum. Someone like to say something? Are you all right? No? Right, thank you. Move on then to the most inspirational project for making a difference at work, and that goes to the Wings Cameroon from Wales and South West region.
Congress, I would like to thank you all for presenting us with this wonderful award for Wings Cymru. We organise period poverty supplies to schools in Bridgend County Borough. We are now in 48 schools. We've got 8 schools to go and 2 colleges. Gemma Hartnell, our founder, should be here today, but she couldn't get the time off because she doesn't work in a unionised place. So thank you very much, and it's most appreciated. I would like to thank John Phillips, my regional secretary, and Ruth Brady for the donations and the help that they've given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. We will now give the winners of the highly commended awards. Could they please come to the stage to collect your framed certificate? And the first one is the most inspirational individual on equality at the GMB at work, and that goes to Margaret Clark from Birmingham and West Midlands.
I'd just like to say thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. This award means so much to me, and I'm really pleased to receive it. And thank you also to Joe Morgan, the Regional Secretary from Birmingham and West Midlands, the Equality Officers, and everyone who's helped me get this award. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. And the next is the most inspirational regional equality forum, and that goes to Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Regional Equality Forum.
President, Congress, on behalf of the region and especially the Regional Equality Forum, thanks for this award. We might not be the biggest regional forum there's going, but we certainly put a lot of work in. The main thing I can say about what makes our regional forum so good is we don't stick labels on people, mainly because if they stuck a label on me, they couldn't get one big enough to say able-bodied, middle-aged, white, straight guy. But that's what makes us, our regional forum special. The fact that we do it, no matter what you are, who you are, all we're bothered about is fighting, not because it's politically correct or because it's right or not trendy, but because it's the right thing for this union to do. Thank you, Congress.
Thank you. We'll now go on to the Mary McArthur Health and Safety Award. Last year, we launched a new award for the GMB Health and Safety Reps, who make outstanding contributions to the workplace safety. This award is a honour of Mary McArthur, who ended the barbaric practices of sweating workers and who organised safety standards for women working within explosives in World War I. I will call the award winners up to the stage to pick up their awards, and I am proud to announce the winner is Teresa Farmer from Birmingham and West Midlands region. Oh, she's here.
Sick of being bullied. 3 attempts to dismiss me just because I wanted to take the job of being a union rep for Wilco. I win an award for health and safety, yet I'm banned from doing my basic stage 1 health and safety training. We've got 50 stores on our region and only 6 reps, and we need all 50 stores on our region to have a rep. So I want to say thank you for the support. I want to say thank you to a lady called Julie Weeks for giving me some training and giving me some backbone, for making me feel strong as a woman when I'm being bullied by a bunch of men. I'd like to thank my branch officer, Ian Edwards, for the support, for stopping me from being lazy and for making me do my homework and for making me know the titles of the wrongs that are being done against us, what they're called and the pigeonhole that we can put them in so we can then take them to task. But I thank the GMB for all the support and for making me feel strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. We now have 2 runners-up, and the first one is Grant Bennett from the London region.
Thank you, everyone. So I've been given finest blend Scotch whisky, and I'm a recovering alcoholic, so... So someone's going to get lucky with some whisky tonight, so just won't be me. You know, thank you to so many people, especially Dennis McNulty, the Camden branch secretary. He's been absolutely fantastic since the day he walked through the door. Thank you to everyone that nominated me. If there's more than one of you and I haven't mentioned anyone, or I don't say thank you to everyone, you know who you are, so I shouldn't have to say too many thank yous. Secondly, in an ideal world, I shouldn't really be stood here. Because out there, we should be working in places which are adhering to the regulations and legislation put in place. And there should be absolute no reason for me to have had to go to the lengths that I went to have to be nominated for this award. The trouble is, we're not living and working in ideal worlds no more. All I ask is that we change with the times. Employers have changed with the times. We need to change with the times. I was accused once of being a 70s trade union representative, and my answer to that is, well, don't be a 70s employer. All I ask is that we keep our eyes on the prize and put our members first. That's all that I ask. Thank you to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. And the other runner-up is Jason Granger from the Middle and East Coast region. Announce the third year of our GMB Women's Award in memory of Eleanor Marx. Eleanor worked alongside Will Thorne, setting up our union, and was elected to our executive at the 1891 Congress. I am so pleased to announce that the winner is Sarah James from Birmingham and West Midlands region. Equality forums and campaigns. Her incredible work on launching the Birmingham Organised Sisters Society, known as BOSS, in 2014, including campaigns on period poverty called Bleeding Insane, and her work on domestic violence awareness are just some of the great campaigns that she has led on. A truly deserving winner of the Eleanor Marx Award. Sarah.
Acting President, Congress, just want to say thank you, really. We've heard a lot already this week of GMB being a family, and that's exactly what it is. I don't think any of us could be standing here doing what we do without our own families and without our union family. So just want to say a quick thank you to everybody that supports me and enables me to be able to do what I do. It's not just me doing it on my own. There's everybody in my branch, in my region, on the National Equality Forum, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So thank you to everybody.
We would also like to present a special award to Sarah Kelly from Yorkshire region for her incredible work this year in the Yorkshire Ambulance Service. Not only has Sarah changed policy on abuse to staff within her employer, she has also spearheaded changes to legislation. She has campaigned to better protect ambulance staff on the front line from violent attacks and abuse, and make sure that those who have abused workers are prosecuted properly, and staff are not exposed to their attackers again. This is an incredible achievement and shows exactly the determination campaigns need in order to make changes. Sarah.
I'd I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you to my GMB family in Yorkshire, especially Pauline Kiley, my branch secretary, and to Stacey Booth for actually getting me back to work and making me make a difference and to carry on making a difference. Thank you.
Congress, that concludes the awards. We'll now move on to finish off this morning's business with the 3 motions that were left off. That is 28 London Region, Composite 5 London and Birmingham, and 31 Yorkshire. If them can come to the front, please. And the motion 28 mover to the rostrum.
Can you just announce the 2 people up on stage with me are Mel Andrew and Lisa Johnson, please?
Mel Andrew.
Mel Andrew, National Equalities Officer. Mel Andrew, yeah.
Mel.
Mel, N-E-L-L. And Lisa Johnson.
What's she?
External Relations and Training Manager. Head of External Relations and Training. Yeah. External Relations and Training.
That's all right, thank you.
Head of External Relations and Training. Nell is National Equality Officer. Cambridge. Don't worry, mate. Let me.
Okay.
Marie McCormack, London Region, moving motion 28, workplace mapping. Vice President, Chair, Congress. As a time-strapped branch secretary, knowing who your members are, what their actual jobs are, and where they are based is essential. Fast and efficient ways of communication is also vital. This motion is about workplace mapping. I want to be able to see at the click of a button where certain pockets of members are based and/or how many members we have in a particular work type area. It would also identify areas where extra efforts need to be made with recruitment. This motion asks for certain information to be made compulsory at the point of applying to become a member online or by application form, e.g. email, work and private email, mobile, work and private, clearly identifying the actual job that somebody does, not just the job title, because that doesn't always give us any clues as to what they actually do day to day, and to specify the exact location, maybe the team that they're in, and if they're self-employed. This will be helpful when grouping members together, as I'm also interested in mapping areas where there are, for example, hotspots in the area of workplace stress. Members don't always know who else in their team is a GMB member, and they're entitled to their privacy. Their individual privacy is paramount. But for me, as somebody who's trying to organise, it's helpful for me to know where there are different groups and particular groups of GMB members. And also to see whether there's a particular problem. Say, for example, if there's workplace stress, there are hotspots where there is a lot of stress. Sometimes it relates to a particular manager, and it would just be helpful to help the members ultimately. In addition, departmental reorganisation proposal documents are presented for scrutiny almost on a weekly basis. If I was able to simply press a button and pull up all the details of all the members in a particular area in a matter of seconds, it would be a far more effective way of operating. As I say, all branch secretaries are at time strapped for time. We already have the technology, but without the capturing of certain key data, we can't exploit the technology to its full potential. And so that's for both the members and the branch's advantage, and it's effective overall smooth running. So taking this particular form, it says, tell us about you, but then it says the important bits, and it refers to the direct debit. I think everything on this form is important, and particularly capturing what people actually do for a living is most important, not just the job title. So I move motion 28.
Thank you, Marie. Seconder.
My name's Beverly Woodburn, and I'll be seconding motion 28. I'm a first-time speaker and a first-time delegate. pressure. Mapping is vitally important to branch building and to branch organisation. If a branch is to grow or recruit, not to stand still, then it must know where its current membership is and where they are. And this is equally so in preparation for a likely dispute. Now, mapping tells us where we're strong, where we're weak, where the opportunities exist for growth, and where the threats are. And mapping guides us as we campaign on things locally. In getting the vote out, what I've done in the past is to create mobile phone lists, no names, just phone numbers, so that we could keep people in touch, find out who's voted, who's not voted, who's yet to vote. And it's been invaluable in getting a high turnout, which in turn helps to negotiate, to help sway negotiations, hopefully in our favour. Now, we can't wait on a review of the GDPR, data protection regulations. And at the end of the day, you know, we're not PPI, you know, we're not cold calling our members. We're a union with the best interests of members at its heart. And whether staff stay or join a union or leave a union depends on a live union presence. And mapping is that presence. So I ask you to support motion 28.
Thank you, Beverly. Composite 5.
Vice President, Chair, Congress, Newton Stewart, London Region, moving Composite 5. Congress, this motion highlights a challenge all unions face today working in a fast-paced digital world. It is now more than ever before that we need to ensure that we remain relevant and up-to-date with all our materials and publications. As a general union, we have members in all sectors of the economy, of all skills, ages and nationalities, but we recognize that we need to move into a new area and a new pattern of working, such as the gig economy. Our members are becoming more demanding. They need information at their fingertips to support and inform them and show how professional we are. We need to embrace new ways of working, new technology, and working in a digital world. Unions are built on structures that cascade information down to the workers and bring views of the members back up the chain. Unions have had an advantage of having direct access to people on the ground through the structures and ways of communicating with them. Democratic structures such as ours have not, and by and large, been updated for the digital age. Now, every organization can use digital channels or other forms of communication to speak to their members or customers, so we need to keep up. Other organizations taking the union movement's digital cake and are eating it. Campaigning is taking different forms. Social media and apps are being used to run campaigns. We too need to ensure that we can campaign equally on digital platforms, as well as using traditional methods such as posters, leaflets, and bulletins. We are working in a society which is being bombarded with information, news, and even fake news. What we are asking for complements a referred motion from Congress 2017 asking for updates to the Workplace Organizers Toolkit, as some of our materials are 10 years old. London, together with all regions, are looking at retention of members. We are looking at what members get when they join and what other information they are sent by region all branches. We need to ensure that throughout the whole of the members' journey, from when members join, that we communicate with them on matters that are relevant to them and enable them to best represent members or raise the profile of the GMB. We appreciate that much of this work is underway, and we look forward to seeing the new GMB website with a range of materials, guides, and best practice. We have a duty to ensure that our reps and branches are armed with facts and policies that can use or adapt in order to advise or consult with their members. We have a duty to train and support our activists, reps, and branches. Let's make sure we fit the 21st century in all we do and say. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Newton. Seconder.
Roger Mander, Birmingham and West Midlands, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. This conference asks the CEC to instruct the regions to make available information, promotion packs and materials for the use of induction into the GMB where required. We have heard for the right reasons about the importance and priority of recruitment. Unity, strength comes to mind, and in fact is one of the cornerstones of organising your workplace. The workplace organising is about being good at recruitment, retention and representation. So to improve our chances, we have a viable, credible product, which we have, and it's best to grasp the opportunity at the induction stage into the workplace where possible. Strike while the iron's hot. What better way to recruit than to speak to new starters and explain why it's much better to be a part of the trade union family and sharing its benefits. Having promotional material, a pen and other freebies would help the initial impact no end. It looks organised and professional, and as inspirational and persuasive our reps and officials can be, sometimes, but not always, a glossy flyer, a pen and a couple of stickers could well be a deal clincher. It sounds a bit over the top, but enrolling the virtues of the trade union and GMB principles can be quite hard going without a free pen. Signing up to the GMB with a pen to take home as long with your promotion literature is rewarding, as our reps saying, thanks for joining. I don't want a carte blanche system to demand packs for every and all, but for larger groups it could be very cost effective in the long run. What we want is where there is an opportunity for recognition agreement or a proposal for new membership or a thriving recruitment drive in the workplace, then it is in the initial meet and look the part as well. So don't waste money and be specific in the needs of larger or more needy recruitment drives. To finish off, a free pen doesn't make a strong union, a glossy flyer or sticker doesn't make the rep brilliant, or a banner or any promotional literature does not make your job any better, but it doesn't hurt and it doesn't make it worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. 31.
Sue Walker, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Region, moving motion 31, GMB money. Acting President, Congress. This motion, when read, is pretty much self-explanatory. It calls for new GMB members to be provided with information and recruitment forms for GMB money. As we know, this is a fantastic member benefit which many members may not be aware of. If the materials were sent direct to new members with their membership cards, etc., it would help promote this underused, but often for some members, vital lifeline to financial help and support. If we can point members in the direction of GMB money from the get-go, it may help to steer them away from the other less reputable high-interest sharks. It is a no-brainer membership benefit and should be promoted at every opportunity to new members and even us old ones. If you'd like any more information, they're on stand 11 in the exhibition hall, and there is a fringe meeting on Tuesday lunchtime in Syndicate Room. Please support I move.
Thank you. Seconder. Formally, thank you. We'll now go to the votes. Motion 24, the CECR... Oh, sorry. June first. Sorry, June. I'll now call on June Minnery to respond on behalf of the CEC. Sorry, June. I'll try and save 10 minutes.
You didn't exactly miss me. Vice President, Congress, June Minnery, speaking on behalf of the CEC. We are asking for motions 26 and 28 to be referred and for Congress to support motion 31 with a qualification. On motion 26, increase in community campaigning, GMB members are already involved in community campaigning, whether it be about the protection of local services, opposition to fascist and Nazi organisations, or campaigns on housing and transport issues. These campaigns can involve GMB acting on its own or with other unions, often through local trades councils. GMB would need to be wary of the potential impact on many branch secretaries who could be called on to lead community campaigns and might suffer forms of burnout as a result. While the motion has merit, it would be very useful for the CEC and regions to look at the potential impact on GMB in the longer term. Therefore, the CEC is asking for this motion to be referred. On motion 28, workplace mapping, the motion is suggesting that more detailed information be collected and stored for workplace mapping. It's incredibly important to GMB that we effectively map our workplaces in order to build the strongest possible union membership. However, new regulations regarding data protection in the form of GDPR will mean we have to carefully consider the data we collect so as not to be in breach of the new regulations. We must protect our members' information as a paramount concern. It is important, therefore, that this motion be referred for GMB to see how this motion can be fulfilled within the regulations. On motion 31, GMB money, it's a vital resource for members and should be promoted at every opportunity. The new member pack is currently being reviewed, and changes to what new members receive and when is being looked at as part of this process. The qualification is that the CEC recommends that the National Communications Team work with regions to look at the best way to promote GMB money. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking for Congress to refer motions 26 and 28 and to support motion 31 with the qualification with the reasons given. Thank you.
Thank you, June. We'll now go to the vote. Motion 24 is being supported by the CEC. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Does the London region accept reference back? Thank you. London region accept reference back, so the CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Carried. Motion 27 is supported by the CEC. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Carried. Motion 28, does the London region reference back? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Carried. Composite 5 is supported by the CEC. All those in favour show. Any against? Carried. And motion 31, does Yorkshire accept the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. We'll now move on to item 6, which is employment policy. Could I ask for composite 12, motions 138, 139, 140 and 142 come to the front, please? And the mover of composite 12 to the rostrum. And after that group, I'll be taking 157, 159 and 162 if you get ready, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Byron Cook, Birmingham West Midlands region, moving composite 12. It's on page 130 of your books. What can I say? It's all something we know and do. You work hard all over your life, save for the future, build up a nice little nest egg, and then it's gone. Why? It's just like that, and it's gone. Why? Because of greed, incompetence, lies, all by a few people put in place to run a company. And what happens to them? A slightly smaller yacht next year. So let's make it a criminal offence for these directors to touch our pension funds. Let's make it so that they are that scared to go anywhere near them that they won't. We lift the veil of corporate responsibility for death in the workplace. So why can't we lift it for pillaging our pensions, something that we save for? You can be as rich as possible, but when you're held at Her Majesty's pleasure, you're no richer than your cellmate. I move.
Thank you, Byron. Seconder.
President, Congress, Eric Williams, Northern Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. I'm proud to be here. Secondary Com Site 12, Employee Pension Funds. Congress, the way that greedy directors are allowed to use a company pension scheme for their own end is a scandal. We have a situation where directors seem to be able to act without having to account for their actions unless it is too late. In the case of British Home Stores, the trustees of that pension scheme were clearly under pressure from an owner who, to say the least, could pull the wool over their eyes. In the case of Carillion, it is not clear that what involvement there has been with the trustees. The fact is that there needs to be much more greater scope for the trustees to step in and have greater powers to prevent shares and dividends to be paid out at the expense of the company pension scheme. Congress, it makes a mockery of the pensions auto-enrolling scheme if directors can still get away with using a pension scheme as a way of boosting the value of their shares and in the process director pay. What needs to happen is the law to change. Pension trustees need more say. Sorting out pension deficits needs to be placed before paying dividends, and there should be either a new company law and an existing laws beefed up so that current and future pensioners and their dependents get a decent pension. I second.
Thank you, Eric. 138.
Carol Clarkson, Midlands East Coast Region, move a motion 138, pensions. Vice President, Congress. The government has introduced new legislation around pensions. You must pay a minimum of 3% in 2018 and 5% in 2020. Asda and many other companies have took the opportunity to erode our pension. Where we paid from the first penny we earned and Asda matched it, we now don't pay pension until we reach the target Asda has set. However, a lot of our low-paid part-time workers are under the threshold, so can't take part. I've worked for Asda for 38 years, and I remember 22 years ago when the GM took them on for not allowing part-timers to be in the Asda pension. Because part-timers are mainly women, we took them on under the Equalities Act. We won, and we got 3 years back investment. Well, surprise, surprise, as Scylla would say, they're at it again. They're after our pension again. The majority of my colleagues can't earn enough to be in the pension, and if they could, ASDA won't match it. Now, if we put 5% in, ASDA will put 3% in. That can't be fair. How are we going to have security and dignity in our old age with this pittance of a pension? Governments are asking us to save for our old age and yet are allowing employers to dodge their responsibility. We must lobby and put pressure on the government to make sure that the employer does not ignore their responsibility. Congress, please support. I move.
Thank you, Carol. Seconder.
Karen Morell, Midland and East Coast Region, seconding motion 138, pensions. Vice President, Congress, most of us who work are in a pension. It's not only ASDA, but most of our employees are attacking our pensions. They have already attacked our pay and conditions, and now it's our pension. The employers want us to be poor workers and then go on to be poor pensioners. We need government to intervene and make our pensions safe and make our pensions a living wage for our twilight years. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Karen. 139.
George Fraser, London Region, moving motion 139 on underfunded pension funds. Vice President, Congress. If you rob a bank, you'll get a jail sentence. If you rob a pension fund, you'll most likely get a knighthood. Just look at Robert Maxwell and Philip Green, and many others. They plundered the Mirror Group and BHS pension funds to maintain their elaborate lifestyles and keep their companies trading. Monarch Airlines and Carillion are more recent examples of workers' futures and retirement income being put in precarious jeopardy due to incompetence and plain theft. Congress, it is simply not acceptable that bonuses to bosses and dividends to shareholders are paid despite the fact that staff pensions are being plundered to keep these payments to bosses and shareholders in place and the companies running. Shareholders have a responsibility to ensure the companies they invest in are run properly. That includes looking after employees. If the company does well, they win. If the company does not, they lose. That's the way of it. They cannot temper that risk by robbing the pension fund of their employees. It is estimated that British pension funds are only 67.7% funded, and this shortfall is not only in the private sector. Many local government pension funds are underfunded because employer shares have not been paid in. All this puts pressure on the Pensions Protection Fund and, ultimately, our taxes. Congress, pension is pay. Robbing a payroll is a crime. Robbing a pension fund is robbing a payroll and ultimately a crime. Directors and shareholders must pay the price when they do. I move. Please support.
Thank you, George. Seconder.
Vice President, Congress. I'm Dave Reed, London Region, first-time speaker. Seconding motion 139, underfunded pension funds. We think that the pension fund is underfunded by companies that the companies should have to bring the pension fund up so it is not underfunded before they take any bonuses or any payout shares holders. Also, pension funds should be ring-fenced so that the company cannot touch them. when they run into trouble, which will make the pensions more secure. It is only right that the companies should look after their employees' futures rather than giving their shareholders bigger payouts than the company can afford. It's only right that the employees are paid for their full pension entitlement, as they've given loyal service to the employer. All companies need to understand that their workforce is their greatest asset, and they should be looked after in service and in retirement. All companies should not be able to touch the pension fund once the money goes into it. It should only come out for pension. We ask that you get behind this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. 140.
Vice President, Chair, Congress. Alan Tyler, first-time speaker, first-time delegate. Speaking on behalf of London Region, moving motion 140, divestments in pensions, without support of the region. We have already seen footage on our TVs with regards to the threats of global warming and the use of fossil fuels on our planet. My concerns are, and I'm sure yours are as well, is how much money is being used from our pension pots that is going into fossil fuels. These are the facts and figures produced so far. The government has said that £2 trillion of our workplace pensions goes into fossil fuels, and have now decided that this should be diverted into other schemes and away from oil, gas and coal fields. The government is to introduce new investment regulations that will mirror our members' ethical concerns and address the environmental regulations. And rules are to be consulted on next year regarding these issues. About £78 billion a year pours into our pension pots each year from fossil fuel companies, and even my local council has £48 million tied up in fossil fuels. Companies which they may try to invest in cleaner energy, which they have started to do now. There is now 80 new electric pumps being put into our borough, and new energy schemes for residents in the south of the borough being set up as well. One of the biggest investors in Norway have started to take steps to come out of investing in fossil fuels and looking into the future and what to do next. Crown Prince Abdulaziz Al from Saudi Arabia has commented that we have a disastrous dependence on oil, but his understudies are not too sure on what the future will hold for their country when other countries are turning into cleaner energy. So what happens when countries start coming away from fossil fuels and battling for climate change starts? Will fossil fuels become stranded assets and worthless? This has been held a victory for fossil fuel campaigners. I understand the views of our union and the worries and job losses in the fossil fuel industries and losing so much of our pensions. Once it all goes wrong, like the bad old days of the 80s in the Thatcher area when thousands of miners got thrown onto the scrap heap and there was no work for them, I feel there is a way out, but this will be hard. We must invest in cleaner alternatives to fossil fuels, which is going on right now, and invest in jobs for those that will be made redundant from this, which the unions will take a full view on. I look at my children and their children's children, as I'm sure you all do, and I don't want them breathing in the same air I breathe in. Pollutants from fossil fuels are shortening my life. I want them to breathe in clean, fresh air, live longer, not have to pour the resources into our beloved NHS, which is in such a mess at the moment. There's another point there. Imagine how much money the NHS would save if we could all breathe cleaner, fresher air. We're pardon me, we are damned if we don't, damned if we do, as the old saying goes. I hope you look into this with your hearts and not your wallets. I move this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Seconder.
Marie McCormack, London Region, seconding motion 140. Alan has really said it all. I mean, sometimes you simply have to review and start anew. We can't pretend this isn't a problem. The elephant is in the room, and it's got the potential to affect our health and the health of generations to come. So let's start a debate on the matter. That's really what we're doing here today, to get the debate rolling. It's something we simply can't ignore. So I second this motion.
Thank you, Marie. 142.
Vice President, Chair, Congress, Lorraine Winson, Northwestern Irish Region. Pension pooling was a means for the setting up of larger groups of funds that by merging together would provide a smaller number of larger funds. In 2015 it was 91, now it's 8. The Tory government's aim was to cut admin costs. Translated, that meant cut admin jobs within the pension fund. My branch is concerned that these pools put our pension pots under government control and not in the control of its members. One of the main architects of this pooling was Saeed Javid, and we were not surprised when he didn't want trade unions on fund management boards. This alone should make trade unions want to have a degree of control over our own pension funds. The government has another use for pooling, to make and continue to make massive cuts to the public sector. Councils contract out services, schools increasingly tender out services, and that's all schools, not just academies. Our second worry is that the local government pension scheme was made of local government workers and employers, but they were all local authorities. Now a scheme that had 11 employers now has 800. That's employers, not members. Schools and councils tendering out services to the private companies have created a huge rise in employers, which has an effect on the fund. There are cases of employees being tupied from a council into a school and then into private companies. Small companies taking over do face some difficulties. One, they've got to apply for admitted body status. And it's worth saying that TUPE does not cover pensions until admitted status has been granted, and that death in service grant may not be granted without a lengthy legal battle over this period. 2, employers' contributions. This is where a problem lies. Private companies are out for profit. They will cut your terms and conditions, quoting economical, technical, or organisational reasons. Companies that should pay a higher rate of employee contributions, are being sheltered by the pooling effect. This is wrong on so many levels. This is being done all over the country by keeping the private companies' contributions low. They are encouraging them to come in and take employees' pensions into the private sector. This is pooling in its worst form. My branch's objection is around the unfairness of the process that takes our members into the private sector. If the CEC opposes this motion, and I believe they are doing, then the GMB must make sure our reps and members are fully aware of these issues and prepare members to sit on and take an active part in local pension management structures. I also hope someone from the CEC might inform me and my region what a cross-pool forum actually is and what it does, because not one person I've asked so far has a clue. I move.
Thank you, Lorraine. Seconder.
Good afternoon, Congress and Chair.
Mary, you finally got me here. Hats off to you. And you've run away. Don't blame you. I'm seconding this motion. And thank you to Lorraine. That was a really well put together proposal. And I liked it very much. Right. I'm going to use the term carpetbaggers. Carpetbaggers was, for those who are a bit older, was a story written by Harold Robbins about people who went around making lots of money. And the actual definition is, the term carpetbaggers refers to an outsider relocating to exploit locals. It derives from post-millennium South, that's America, where it referred specifically to opportunistic northerners who flocked to pillage the occupied southern states in Robbins' novel, and it became a film. Okay. The reason I mention that is because what's going on with our pensions is carpetbaggers are coming along. People are coming along and making use of our funds, just like they are doing when they're going into the NHS and anywhere else that they'll be privatising. They're making money, as was rightly stated before. I call them asset strippers and carpetbaggers, obviously. I've made up a little acronym, and it comes from a sentence I've written: constructive removal of our assets from our pension funds. And the acronym that comes out of that is CRAP. Okay? So I second this motion and ask Congress to act on this matter urgently. Today, it may already be too late. And as you probably realise, the 1st of April has gone. And that is the date that everyone should have been in a pool. So these people are already active and taking our money away and our pensions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can I now call on David Hope to respond to the motions, please, on behalf of the CEC?
President Congress, David Hope speaking on behalf of the CEC. We are asking that Composite 12 governing motion 37 and 41 be supported with a qualification, and that motion 39 be supported as well with a qualification, and Congress oppose motion 140 and 142. On Composite 12 and motion 139, the CEC is asking that both be supported with a qualification. We've seen entire workforce pensions wiped out because of incompetence and greed of company directors, BHS being a prime example. The CEC supports reforming pension legislation so that money that is saved for workers' retirement is as far away from risk as possible. The qualification is that making company directors personally liable would require drastic legislation change, and that's something the government wouldn't support us of. We can support other methods such as greater powers to trustees to intervene with trigger points at which shares and dividend payments would be suspended pending resolution of the pension deficit. We can also lobby to amend the Insolvency Act of 1986 to include pension fund deficits. Congress, on motion 140, the motion is correct in outlining that pension schemes trustees have a duty to invest in the best interest of the scheme members to ensure that there is enough money within the scheme to provide pensions that were promised to the workers. However, this motion does not take into account the vast number of GMB members who work in the fossil fuel industry and supply chain, or offer any sort of plan to help them transition the many highly skilled and well-paid jobs into other employment. Whilst the machinery and engineering of renewable energy components are manufactured largely outside Britain, we cannot justify de-investing in our members' jobs until these industries provide that they can support a significant workforce supply industry with power and heat for our homes. So we simply cannot de-invest it. We still cannot de-invest in the industries that we have members in. Finally, Congress, on motion 420, we are asking you to oppose this motion as well. Pooling arrangements bring flexibility and economies of scale, which in turn maximise returns for LGPS pools. Pools are now well established, and the trade union representation is required on each pool, and newly created cross-pool forums in order to protect members' interest. Where employers seek to transfer GMB members to the private sector, we note that precautions afforded by TUPE and a fair deal. So Congress, the C is asking for you to support Composite 12, Motion 139 with the qualification I've just explained, and oppose both Motion 140, 142 with the reasons I've just set out. And I'll find out what a cross-pool is, Lorraine. All right. All right. Cheers.
Thank you, David. We'll now move to the vote. Composite 12, does Birmingham and Northern Region accept the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. 138 is being supported by the CEC. All those in favour, show. Any against? That's carried. 139, does the London Region support the qualification? Yes? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Now, the CEC are asking you to oppose 140. All those in favour, please show. Against? That's lost. They're also asking you to oppose 142. All those in favour, please show. Against? That's lost. Can I just tell conference the new faces on the top table? Next to the General Secretary, we have Lisa Johnson. Lisa is the Director of External Relations and Training. And next to Lisa is Nell Andrew, who is the National Equality Officer. Welcome to pair of you. We'll now move on. Can I ask 157, 159 and 162 to come to the front, please, and 157 move her to the rostrum.
President, Congress, Dave Flanagan, North Western Irish Region, start again. Conference, Dave Flanagan, North Western Irish Region, moving motion 157 on SSP waiting days. Currently, the rules for statutory sick pay stipulate that employees do not receive payment for the first 3 days of sickness. If you have not been off sick for 4 or more days within the last 8 weeks, then the first 3 days that you would normally have been at work are classed as waiting days. From the 4th day, if you are still off ill, then you qualify for SSP. For some colleagues and members, this poses a problem. For example, if you normally only work 1 day a week, you have to wait 3 weeks before you qualify for SSP. We all get ill from time to time through no fault of our own. All this motion asks is that workers are supported from day one. We also have members who do not receive any sick pay from employers, particularly those that fall within the gig economy and are in insecure work where the employer will do all they can to avoid paying any sick pay. This means we have, across the union, thousands of members who receive no sick pay at all. 3 days out of a 5-day week is the difference between survival and poverty. Delegates, remember, a lot of the people working for these employers who refuse to pay sick pay often need 5 days' pay as a minimum they need to stay alive, to function, and to support their families. Congress, please support. I move.
Thank you, David. Seconder. Formally, thank you. Move to 159.
Vice President, Congress, Carol Estebanes for Wales and West Region, moving motion 159, continual service rights for agency workers. Over the years, it's been standard practice to use agencies for temporary work, or managed service providers, as they now like to be called, for organisations to fill gaps in a fluctuating work environment. In many cases, it's been seen as a means to save money and to trial employees before a company commits to employing them. Some of the temporary labour providers or agencies have been known to be less than fair with workers, and this has caused tenuous relationships between agencies providing staff, their workers, and the company that is using the temporary workers. This method of coping with seasonal or sickness cover has been extended, and in many cases, the same people are covering a job that has not been filled in the normal recruitment way of advertising and interviewing for what is a permanent post. An agency worker could be in the same location doing the same job for a number of years. The changes in legislation have gone a long way to improve agency workers' situation. A lot has altered in the way agencies operate, not least the move away from umbrella companies that have misled and cheated workers and the government, but there is still a long way to go to give agency workers access to better rights and working conditions. One area that I have noticed recently is that of agency workers having worked through the agency for a number of years in a specific location and job role, and then eventually being taken on directly by the employer. The new employer has given them their legal basic rights. But what of any perks or recognition that they may have earned? In many organisations, there are bonuses for loyalty. This may be an additional pay rise or an increase in the number of days or holidays that they have occurred. The agency worker would have already earned recognition for knowing the job and would generally be helping other newer employees, but no recompense is received. As the time spent with the agency does not count, they are regarded as a new employee in a financial way, but the employer gets more benefit as they are well versed in the job they do. In many organisations, especially the public sector, these people would have been given the chance to keep the time served and benefits they have accrued and would otherwise be entitled to. In some cases, it appears that they are worse off by being employed in a permanent position, as they are losing out on holiday entitlement and a better pension provision, as well as sickness payments and maybe even the chances of promotion. But most importantly, job security. Congress, I move. Please support.
Thank you, Carol. Seconder.
Marie MacDonald, Wales and South West Region, second in motion 159, continual service rights for agency workers. Vice President, Congress. When taking on former agency workers as directly employed individuals, employers are very clear about when their period of a continuous employment began for the purposes of any service-related rights or entitlements. If the worker was engaged upon a permanent contract of employment with the agency, then they will have accrued rights with them up to the point that they transfer. The number of agency workers is probably at the highest level it's ever been, but they face many challenges in the labour market, including how to work out what rights they actually possess. Agency workers offer flexibility to the host employer, as they can usually be sourced at short notice and used for anything from just a few hours to much longer periods. However, my branch's experience, and that of many others, is that agency workers are retained for much longer terms, often covering not just for short-term leave such as sickness, but permanently established positions in the relevant service area. In many cases, the worker proves to be competent and valuable to the end user, but remains tied to the agency. Due to pressure from the GMB representatives, public bodies have sometimes applied a criteria whereby agency workers become direct employees after a certain period of continuous employment has elapsed. Although this type of arrangement is outside the terms of business between the agency and the employer, it has helped in removing any uncertainty and insecurity. Congress, more than 60% of agency workers would prefer to be in a permanent role. They still lack other basic employment rights, such as occupational sick pay and parental leave, and have no notice period and legal recourse in the event of dismissal. We need to lobby to toughen the laws to create more level playing field for agency workers. and providing for continuity of employment from day one has been a priority objective. I second.
Thank you, Marie. 162.
Campaign and oppose the scrapping of the Working Time Directive. President, Congress, Roy Perry, first time delegate, first time speaker. Congress, while Brexit negotiations are in full swing regarding trade agreements, border arrangements and our relationship with Europe, Big Bad Boris and Smarmy Grove, you might recognise them here, are plotting to have our rights removed. The Working Time Directive is a key element of workers' rights that we can ill afford to lose. There are another 9 high-profile pro-Brexit Tories who also side with Johnson & Grove. Apart from Johnson & Grove, Priti Patel, there would be huge benefits to slashing the burden of EU employment legislation. Benefits for who, I ask? Not the hard-working employee of Britain. Mrs Patel sees our rights as a burden. Andrea leads them. I envisage there being absolutely no regulation whatsoever, no minimum wage, no paternity rights, no paternity rights, no unfair dismissal rights, no pension rights for the smallest companies who are trying to get off the ground. So in Mrs Leedsom's world, workers could be hired and fired at will. Bosses could pay what they want and exploit who they want. And my favourite, no paternity rights, a clear attack on family life. Even the Victorians had respect for family life. My all-time favourite quote comes from Michael Gove himself. Scrapping the Working Time Directive is what taking control is all about. This quote comes from a man who has made a pig's ear of every position he has held in government. Ask the school support staff. Our learned friends in the British Medical Association also seem to agree with us. Dr. Janet Napol, BMA Council Chair, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister highlighting the dangers of removing the Working Time Directive. The Working Time Directive protects medical staff from the dangers of overwork whilst protecting patients from overtired doctors and nurses. The full letter can be seen in the BMA website. 3 million workers in the UK have already signed opt-out to the 48-hour working week, but the Working Time Directive contains more than just 48 hours limit. If the Working Time Directive was removed, the following would have more of a detrimental effect: 11 hours uninterrupted rest, a weekly rest period of 24 hours uninterrupted, or at the employer's choice of 48 hours per fortnight, a shift break of 20 minutes when working more than 6 hours per shift, 8 hours maximum average normal hours for night workers in every 24-hour period, 4 weeks annual paid leave, increased to 5.6 under UK domestic rules. These people need stopping in their tracks, so it's time to campaign and oppose the Working Time Directive. I move.
Thank you, Roy. Seconder. Is it formally? Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. The CEC are supporting all these 3 motions, so I'll take them all together. So that's 157, 159 and 162. All those in favour, please show. Any against? They've carried. Colleagues, we've had a request has been made to have handrails added to the access point at the stage. Unfortunately, we cannot make this adjustment, but if anyone needs assistance in getting onto the stage, could they please let the colleagues at the names desk know when they book in, as they can help them onto the stage. Thank you. We'll now move to the of our first of our regional success stories, which we short 3 videos: Scotland, Yorkshire and Southern. Congress, the CEC would now like to present to Congress its statement on political strategy and Labour Party reform. And to do this, I'll call on Jim Clark for the CEC Speaker from the Midland region.
Vice President Congress, Jim Clark moving the CEC statement on political strategy, update and Labour Party reform. To say that the last few years have been politically turbulent would be an understatement. From the Labour Party leadership contest to Brexit, from Trump to a snap general election. To say a week is a long time in politics, well, these last 2 years have felt like a lifetime. I'm here as a proud Labour Party member. I joined because I saw the value of working people having a voice in their services and their communities. We were there at the founding, and we have been there through thick and thin. I remember the jubilation of Tony Blair walking to Downing Street and some of the fantastic policies Labour delivered. The minimum wage, maternity rights, investment in our NHS, schools and hospitals. But I also suffered through those years where I felt like my party left me behind. PFI, war in Iraq, privatisation, tuition fees. That was not my Labour. But I was still Labour. It was our union, and it was created by and for working people, and that's how it will stay. This statement reaffirms not just our commitment to our party, but to the collective voice of the trade union movement within it. There are those who say that unions have too much power. Well, they don't say that when they're taking our money, do they? We do believe in democracy within our party. That's why this paper calls for an expansion of the electoral college. It cannot be right that every senior position in the Labour Party is elected, except for council leaders. Many council leaders do an admirable job working with the unions as austerity cuts services and funding to the bone. But there are some Labour council leaders who, quite frankly, should not be allowed to wear a Labour rosette. If you want to be a Labour council leader, you should adhere to Labour values, and if you do not or will not, then it should be within the gift of the trade union and party members to demand a change. Union-busting council leaders who do so in the name of the Labour Party should be put on notice that we will not have always have our members' backs, industrially and politically too. And we'll be doing this across the spectrum. I was delighted to see Labour Party policy on shipbuilding a few weeks ago, on the back of dozens of GMB reps attending a meeting in Parliament to say how important it is to their livelihoods. We changed the law with our campaign to protect the protectors. We delivered free childcare to foster carers. We had reps from the gig economy telling MPs straight to their faces what the working world is really like. GMB makes a difference for our members. Through politics, we make a difference with Labour for our members. Congress, please support this statement to give trade union members a proper say in the Labour Party and to reaffirm our commitment to the collective voice of the trade union movement. We achieve more through our collective endeavour than we achieve alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Would any of the regions like to put up a speaker? If they do, can they come down to the front, please? We'll start with Birmingham.
Sam Fagan, Birmingham and West Midlands region, supporting the CEC statement, political strategy and Labour Party reform. Vice President, Congress. Our relationship with the Labour Party is historical. For over 100 years, the Labour Party has been the political voice of the union movement, born out of a need for working people's voices to be heard. GMB has been part of the Labour movement from the start, and we must never shy away from this history. Over the years, we've had disagreements, but we've also had huge successes, and our political strategy is key to a Labour Party that supports trade unions, their members, and their values. As Tory austerity continues, it is our members who are suffering, and we cannot afford to take a back seat on these issues. We need to be at the forefront of the political movement, now more than ever. From mental health matters to a real living wage for all workers over 18, ending period poverty, to a fair deal for care sector workers, GMB is writing policy that will benefit our members industrially and socially. The Labour Party is our means to push that policy further, linking industrial aims with political goals. We must continue to educate our members on why the Labour Party is so important, and we must always work to ensure that all of our members have the opportunity to pursue their political ambitions. As a local government worker myself, I am, like my colleagues, restricted from running for public office. Lifting these restrictions would allow many politically experienced GMB members to represent areas that they know well and have good connections in. By allowing more members into politics, the more we can shape policy from within. Training our members for political office is key to this, and that is why our political strategy is so important. Every GMB MP, councillor, CLP member, every GMB member who joins Labour allows us to create real change. We must support our members at every level on their political journey. As a founding member of my region's Young Members Group, Birmingham Youth, and former chair of the GMB Young Members Network, I also believe that it is important to recognise the recent shift within the Labour Party. Thousands of young people have joined Labour over the last few years, but are not joining trade unions at the same rate. With this political strategy, we can bring young members to GMB and ensure that all young workers are supported. We need to look to the future of our movement, and a strong political strategy will do that. Congress, our members deserve a government that treats them with respect and decency, a government that reflects their needs and wants. To make real change, we must take part. Through a strong political strategy, we can and we will put our members at the heart of the Labour Party and at the heart of politics in this country. Congress, I urge you to support this statement. Thank you.
Thank you. London Region.
Brendan Duffield on CEC statement on political strategy. Vice President, Chair, Congress. Brendan Duffield, London Region, speaking in support of CEC political statement, but we would like to raise additional points on the strategy. We need to continue to work at local levels. However, there are some local councils who have constantly attacked the trade union and disrupted the ability to organise. What is needed is a full recognised local government dispute procedure where trade unions can go to the party with disputes in the Labour Council and trade union branches. The dispute procedures must have the power to set standards within the Labour Party, which is all binding. Over the last few years, the GMB and the CLPs, like London and Dagenham, have come under attack. There has been disgraceful statements made by and from the Labour leader saying they are going to make it their mission to break the GMB. We have been subject to gutter politics from a Labour council, a Labour council. Rather than work with the GMB, they continue to try and destroy us and our collective voice. It would seem some embarking of short memories. It wasn't long ago that the Labour group were happy to take GMB money and resources to ensure they were re-elected, and the BNP and UKIP were kept out. The GMB will pursue any attack on its members with retaliation that could destabilise the Labour Party locally. Let's be clear, we will never concede or run away from a fight and attack on our members, irrespective of who's running the council. Please support.
Thank you, Brendan. Midland. Midland, no speaker. Northern. Northwest.
President, Congress, Billy Goulding, North Western Irish Region, speaking in favour of the CEC statement, political strategy and Labour Party reform. Congress, we in our branch initially had concerns with regard to the funding to the Labour MPs and Labour Party, who we have supported support in the past, only to witness them doing nothing to support our values or our trade union policies. However, after reading this report, we can see what the GMB and the CEC are trying to do. The report states over the last 6 years, much has changed in the Labour Party as a result of what the GMB has done to elect politicians who share our values. We need to ensure those MPs who we support continue to support us, the GMB and its members, in its fight against Tory policies which aim to attack our members' working conditions, pensions and lives. We support.
Thank you, Billy. Scotland. Nobody? Southern?
Emily Brothers and Truffle, Southern Region, new delegates. Truffle's going to let me speak this time. I welcome the political statement from the CEC with some caveats. I welcome, for example, the broad brush of the approach, but have some concerns about the breadth around its diversity. So I welcome the calls, for example, for strengthening BME labour and young labour. However, there are other social societies like LGBT labour and disability labour that also need attention from GMB. I think also that it is important for our political strategy to reflect what is said elsewhere on the agenda in the equality statement, which very much talks about mainstreaming, and this political statement perhaps falls short at this stage. I'm also encouraged by what is said in section 4 about training, but I think it's important as part of that mainstreaming to look at how our education and training will reach out to underrepresented groups, particularly disabled people. That is important for improving the political participation of underrepresented groups. Congress, politics should be about the many and not the few. Disabled people are part of the many in our population, some 18% of us, but less than 1% of us are represented in the House of Commons. If it was to be truly represented, there would be 125 of us across political parties in the chamber. That is not the case, and GMB has a role in supporting disabled people to make a difference. The government froze recently the access to elected office that supports equipment and support services for disabled people standing for elected office. I took out a judicial review with support of More United. The minister, the Tory minister, panicked over it and has put forward £250,000 for the next year. But we need a long-term solution, and we need GMB and across the political movement to actually bring about change so that we are clear about the contribution GMB can make to the political lives of disabled people. Our movement, the disability movement, has a slogan, "Nothing about us without us," but that is not the reality in politics for disabled people today. As the Southern Region video said a short time ago, it is time for us to make a difference. That is what GMB is good at achieving, and that's what we need to do with disabled people to provide an authentic voice. It is no wonder that disabled people and other groups in society are turned off by politics because the system does not reflect who they are. We cannot, Congress, take the votes of disabled people for granted, for that would be a dangerous thing to do. We need to reach out to disabled people and other groups like LGBT people. And if we do that in a way that involves and includes in a practical as well as policy way, then we can achieve a Labour government led by Jeremy Corbyn that will deliver politics for the many and not the few. I support.
Thank you, Emily. South Western.
Chair Conference, Dan Walsh, Wales and South West Region. First time here at Congress. I rise to support the CE statement on political strategy and Labour Party reform. But before I start, I'd just like to take a second to pay tribute to the outgoing Labour First Minister of Wales, Carwyn Jones, for all of his work and for his leadership for showing what can be achieved in social partnership between governments and trade unions. Diolch, Carwyn. Congress, the Labour movement is bigger than just one person. Our traditions and our achievements belong to us all. Since 2015, we've seen the Labour Party grow beyond our wildest expectations. And while this is certainly welcome, we must never compromise on our founding principles. We are a modern and dynamic movement, but also one steeped in history. Conference, this statement is an excellent statement. I don't agree with every single point, but it does unambiguously commit this union to fight for some very important principles. Every day, elected members at all levels and their staff work incredibly hard to advance our values. They should be able to take forward our priorities in Parliament, free from abuse and threats to their livelihoods. It is because of our traditions as a Labour movement, colleagues, that we must oppose mandatory reselection of MPs. It is a concept designed to hold a proverbial gun to the heads of the servants of our movement. We have always fought to end undue influence over our members, and it is in this spirit that we must oppose mandatory selection and respond to all of our party reform proposals. We must also ensure that individualists do not weaken our collective democratic voice, and this includes in Wales. Online polls cannot replace our structures, and our members must continue to have a stake in the work of the Labour Party. Congress, our movement has clearly defined values and objectives. Our movement is not an umbrella movement for anyone that's ever had a left-wing thought in their life. The Labour Party is the political wing of the organised Labour movement, and it must always remain so. Collectivism and solidarity are not optional extras. And colleagues, it's incumbent on us to do the right thing, to lead from the front, and not bow to the new form of populism. It's incumbent on our national officers that sit on national committees of the Labour Party to do the right thing, to stand up to anti-Semitism, and to defend the rights of ordinary men and women who fund this movement. Please support this statement and make sure that this union does its part to lead from the front. Diolch.
Thank you, Dan. Yorkshire.
Vice President, Congress, Karen Rowling, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Supporting the CEC statement, political strategy and Labour Party reform. The Labour Party was built by the trade unions, and this is something that nobody in the Labour Party should ever lose sight of. Our links are as important today as they ever were. Faced with a Tory government, one that is currently ruling without a majority, who are hell-bent on diluting and eroding the rights of workers and the influence of the trade unions, we must stand firm together as a collective and fight to ensure that every working person in this country has representation both from their union and also a strong opposition in government from the Labour Party. We've seen what can be accomplished by joint working between the GMB and the York Labour Party, and we must build on this. In the Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, we are fortunate to have many GMB MPs who work collaboratively and positively to ensure that the aims and objectives of the Union are reflected in the work they do in Parliament. We're proud that it was our region whose successful campaign forced the government to agree to foster carers receiving 30 hours of free childcare through the hard work and dedication of Rachel Harrison and the team. This is an example of what can be achieved when the GMB and the Labour Party work together. It has to be recognised, though, that this isn't always the case, and Yorkshire and North Derbyshire regions support strengthening the structures to ensure that all elected members in the Labour Party hold the same aims and values of the trade union movement. We must ensure the end of council leaders and councillors who, whilst trying to balance the books in these times of unprecedented austerity and cuts, lose sight of the people they were elected to represent and seek to take away vital pay and conditions. At all levels of the Labour Party, there is a place for the union movement, and Yorkshire and North Derbyshire regions support the continuation of the training and support offered to members who want to run for public office. Over the last few years, we've seen a rise in the number of MPs elected from less traditional backgrounds. Gone are the days of Parliament being full of the so-called elite. Thanks to the work and encouragement of the GMB, we now have MPs from normal working class backgrounds. MPs who understand their constituents because they grew up with them and have compassion and understanding for their needs and their struggles and a better place to stand up and shout to ensure they get a fair deal. The work of the GMB within the Labour Party should be celebrated and encouraged because who understands the needs of the workers more than the union that's there to represent them? Congress, we support.
Thank you, colleague. Congress will now go to the vote. The CEC are looking for your support for the statement. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. I would like now to introduce our first guest speaker, who has been invited to address Congress by the Southern region. Last time we gathered here in Brighton, the Council was under a Green Party control, and we all know how that turned out. Now we are back here under a Labour-controlled authority, and it is my great pleasure to introduce the new leader of Brighton Council, Daniel Yates.
Vice President, Congress, hello and welcome to Brighton and Hove, and I hope it is as sunny as Paul claimed it was going to be. It wasn't necessarily when I walked in, I have to say. I'm Daniel Yates, I'm the leader of Brighton Hove City Council, and can I just add that I'm really proud to be the first leader of Brighton Hove City Council to be invited here to attend your Congress. And not a delegate, not a member. It was one of the very first invitations that I received. Patience. And after becoming the leader of the City Council elect, I received a very kind invitation to come and speak to you, and I really do want to share what we think we're doing and how we think that we can work well with the GMB, well with the members, and really deliver the best possible public services for those who live and work and learn in this great city. I'm only 2 weeks into this new role, so I can't really claim that I've gained any particular wisdom or any great particular insights. But that's okay, because I know there's an awful lot of collective wisdom and insights in this room and outside in your membership that you're all too willing to share. And I'm all too willing to listen, to be honest, because I need everybody's wisdom in order to be able to lead this city out of the position that we're in at the moment. I know the GMB will always be there. Sometimes you'll be behind us. Sometimes you'll be beside us. Sometimes you might be in front of us, either leading us or looking at us across the table. But either way, I welcome that role. I welcome everything that you do, because there's nothing better than knowing that we have an engaged group of trade unionists within our workforce, because actually that gives me the confidence that we can learn from every single member of our workforce. And if we're not learning from every single member of our workforce, then we're not really doing the things that people want, are we? So I'm only 2 weeks in. I'm only a fraction older. I'm only a fraction greyer. Certainly no wiser. But I've only been a city councillor since 2015, so I've only really got 3 years of experience being a city councillor, but I've already learnt an awful lot about how the GMB works. I learned very, very quickly that your members drive everything. I learned that you're not a trade union that's going to sit back. You're an active campaigning union. I was really proud to work alongside Southern members and officials to support them in the campaign when our privatised patient transport services across Sussex were being called to account for their abysmal record in delivering for patients and delivering their promises to staff alike. I was more than delighted when that private contractor handed back the service and that service moved back into an NHS ambulance trust who took on that work. And that's something that you should all be proud of in this room. I learned a lot from that whole campaign. I learned especially that once ambulance crews start a sit-in in a council meeting, it's very, very difficult to shift them and it's impossible to ignore them. I've also learned, unlike other trade unions, the GMB doesn't try to tell its members what to do, what to think, when to jump. So when the GMB starts asking questions about the impact of schools cuts or raising concerns about the viability of new services or changes to services, I know as a local council leader that I'd better shut up and listen, because that's the voice of the members coming through. That's the voice of the people that are delivering those services day in, day out. And I've also learned that the GMB isn't afraid to put its members' money to good use. So when the gig economy raises its head and Uber comes knocking at the door, I can be sure that front and centre to any campaign to ensure that there's a level playing field is going to be GMB expertise, GMB support, GMB resources, because the GMB are going to be there supporting their members' interests. So anyway, we're 2.5 weeks into me being leader of the council. It's a daunting task in the current times of austerity, as you've just been discussing. And even I, as a Labour council leader, can't promise to reverse the dramatic impacts of such prolonged attack on all of our local private finances and our local public services. Everything about this city is under attack from austerity. But I am proud of how we in Brighton and Hove over the last 3 years as a Labour council have made sure that every decision that we've taken is rooted in the best interests of residents and the best outcomes for the city. That's why in Brighton and Hove we've seen every single children's centre protected so far. We've seen no library closures so far. In fact, we've increased the opening times of our libraries at times when other councils are slashing library services. We've increased our investment in social care services, protecting the very most important, the most vulnerable people living in our city. And we've seen not one single compulsory redundancy across city council services in the last 3 years. So I might say I'm no wiser than I was just over a fortnight ago, but to be honest, I have learned a couple of important lessons. The first lesson I've learned over the last few weeks is that people are very quick to blame council staff for the failings of council services. And I don't just mean the usual suspects, like the Tory councillor in Hove, who only last week was saying parts of our city council services were too heavily unionised. But to be honest, that's just par for the course for some people. No, it's also the Green Party's councillors and their former councillors who have a problem with collective action. They've called the links between the Labour Party and the trade union movement a vested interest, as if that's a bad thing. I think that's around solidarity, isn't it? I seem to remember it being written throughout the whole history of the Labour movement. Our shared values, our joint working across the last century have delivered the biggest pieces of social change imaginable, yet those previous Greens want it labelled as a vested interest. And as if it wasn't bad enough, it's not just previous Green councillors, it's the leader of the Green group on Brighton and Hove City Council, who was quick enough to suggest that there was a work to rule or unofficial action going on at our City Clean depot. Now, those are just unreasonable attacks, especially coming from the same Green Party who, when they were allegedly running the council for 4 years, managed to force GMB members all the way to the picket line, and at the same time had their own councillors and even their very own MP for the city visiting the picket line, supporting the striking workers. That's the two faces of the Green Party in this city. And I don't know if the Green Party in local government represents friend or foe to the unions and our staff, but I do know that to residents of the city it still represents abject failure. Failure of leadership, failure of delivery, failure of all of their promises. So from all of that hideous party political point scoring, I've learnt one very big lesson. When the fringe elements and the dodgy local political parties start attacking your workers, there's only one thing to do: show some solidarity. That's why I brought two pieces of paper out on today. I brought my speech and I brought my GMB membership application form. And although I was listening to your speeches earlier, I'm keeping the pen. But it's because I believe in unity and solidarity. That's why when the GMB stands up for its members, I shut up and listen. That's why when the GMB is forced to take action to protect its members, I'll be there to help where I can. And when the Tories and the Greens start to blame unions and the workforce for the failings of the council, I'll stand front and centre with you. Because when politicians are throwing the blame at staff, they're forgetting that you, our colleagues, are part of the solution, not part of the problem. And their unions are part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's why I first joined a trade union in 1994. That's why I joined the Labour Party in 1995. That's why I joined the GMB, about a minute ago. Better late than never. I'm proud to leave Brighton Hove City Council, and as part of the Labour and Cooperative Parties group, I'm proud of working alongside a wide range of trade union colleagues. I'm proud of the work that you all do. I'm proud of the unions that you're representing, and most especially today, I'm proud to be applying to be a member of Mary Turner's trade union. Thank you very much, Congress. I'm listening.
Congress will move on. Could I ask for motion 228, 231, 232, 233, 234, 235, and Composite 18 to come to the front, please. And the mover of 228 from Northwestern Irish to go to the rostrum. Withdrawn. Thank you very much. 231, speaker to the rostrum, please.
Vice President, Congress. Mark Watson, London Region, moving motion 231, verification of party political materials. I work in a museum as an education officer. My training was in archaeology, so I work with objects from under the ground. It's also in archives, and I work with old written material. When I use these objects and the documents, what I'm after is the hard facts that I can get from them. I can then weave these into a story, and that's how I actually do my job. So with this sort of background, it came as a surprise to me to find out there is little or no control over facts in election material. Now, election material has a definition, and it means any published material that can reasonably be regarded as intended to influence voters to vote for or against a party or a political party or a category of candidate. And the important words here are intended to influence. Now, there are rules about conduct. They cover what is called the imprint, and that means that we have to be told who is publishing the material and who is behind it. They also cover false statements about the personal character or conduct of the candidate. But the Electoral Commission says, in general, political campaign materials in the UK is not regulated, and it is a matter for voters to decide on the basis of such material whether they consider it accurate or not. Now, they don't want to police it, and I'm not surprised. it would be extremely difficult for them to check the truth of every statement. I accept that, but I feel that with fake news on the agenda, we should go further. I think that the candidate should do the legwork. What I want is for each statement or fact that is made, there should be a corresponding reference to an accessible primary source that I can look at, because I'm a bit of a geek. And I mean accessible, not hidden in a report that no one can see. So if somebody mentions the size of British strawberries in Europe in the same sentence, then that statement needs to be documented in an EU directive. If a photograph is published, then it needs to show exactly what the caption says that it shows. And if they use a statistic, it needs to be from a publicly available site, and so on. And all this information has to be easily accessible on a website. I don't want to touch the dreams and aspirations of future MPs. I know that you cannot hold a party to task for their manifesto. I know that circumstances change and that what you can do or say you want to do before you get in power may not be the same thing that you can do when you get in. But in the 21st century, when we're all besieged by information, you have to make it a lot easier for us. So this Congress, therefore, calls for all published materials used in manifestos and promotional materials for all parties to be verifiable at the point of publication, and the information to be freely and easily available for all. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Mark. Seconder.
No, sorry. Brendan Duffield, London Region, second in motion, 231, misuse of the media. In my household, we call the Telegraph the Tory graft. Oh.
Seconder for 231. Formally. Thank you. 232, mover.
Sorry for that, we've just confused everybody. Vice President, Congress. Mark Watson again, London Region, moving motion 232, misuse of the media. In the early 19th century, a Church of England vicar was reported to have stood in his pulpit and said, "O God, as you have no doubt read in today's Times." Now, the story may be anecdotal, but it talks about a time when the church and the Tory government controlled most of the country, and when they were supported by one newspaper. Now, that was over 200 years ago. By 2018, we should have become more independent. As well as newspapers, we have the web, social media, Twitter, but newspapers are still important for propaganda reasons. And as we have been moving slowly back towards that earlier situation. We know that there are Tory-supporting newspapers, and we know that there are Labour-supporting newspapers, and we also know that there are ones that sit in the middle and pride themselves on providing balanced reports. Mrs. May has taken to making political statements and policy announcements in the Telegraph newspaper. That will cost you between £1.80 and £2, though I'm not expecting you to go out and buy that. What she says will quickly be re-reported in the media and the rest of the press and reinterpreted in websites and social media. That's not the point. It's the symbolism that I object to. It's the same symbolism as was shown from the pulpit, and it shouldn't happen. When Mrs. May says my government, she is wrong. It's Her Majesty's government. It is also the government of everyone and not just certain newspaper readers. Now, this is not an anti-press motion. I said when the motion was submitted, no more scoops, but this isn't intended to ban the scoop. The political interview can still take place, but important policy statements must always be available to all media simultaneously, allowing them all time to put it on their front pages. I'm not sure I'm not at all sure whether the members of the Cabinet should be allowed to write columns for newspapers. I'm fairly sure most of the members of government should have their tweets vetted, but those are subjects for another day. So this conference therefore calls for a campaign to end this association. Congress, I move.
Thanks for that, Mark. Seconder.
So I've got it in order now. Oh, I don't know. Brendan Duffield, London Region, second in motion, 232, misuse of the media. In my household, we call the Telegraph the Tory graph. In some households, a middle-class person with left leanings is called a Guardian reader. We all know that when they call you a Sun reader, they are not being complimentary. And best not to talk about the Daily Mail. Information is important. In 2018, it was then people would want to hire Cambridge Analytica to misrepresent things. Where you get your information from is still important. It matters if the party in power makes policy announcements in newspaper. It tells us all that the party and the press are one. That's what it tells us. Support this motion and start ending the links between the Tory party and the press. Congress, our second.
Thank you, Brendan. 233.
Vice President, Congress. Matt Full, Southern Region, first-time speaker. I move in motion 233, Declaration of Financial Interests by MPs and their families. This conference notes that Theresa May's husband, Philip May, is an investment banker who makes his money trading on offshore accounts held by tax-avoiding countries. It also notes that Theresa May, as Prime Minister, should be responsible for closing the loopholes that allow this tax avoidance to take place legally. This Congress believes that this sort of relationship should not be allowed, where the family members and friends of eminent politicians can directly gain from decisions such as the award of public contracts to private firms without the politician in question having to declare an interest. This Congress can also point to the continued award of contracts to Carillion even after its 3 separate profit warnings within 6 months, and can also point to the completely unrelated matter that the former chairman of Carillion acted as an advisor to David Cameron and was advising the electorate to vote Conservative in 2015. But Congress, this is not just an issue affecting the Conservative Party, unfortunately. It also is an issue affecting our own party, the Labour Party. Therefore, this conference calls on the Labour Party to outlaw MPs from having financial interests in the sectors for which they have responsibility and the power to make decisions. The vast majority of working people will be able to live very comfortably on an MP's salary. And the fact that some appear unable to smacks not only of greed, but of sleaze and corruption too. Congress, I ask you to support this motion.
Thank you, Matthew. Seconder, please.
Congress and Chair, I am Trish Ennis. My mother only calls me Patricia and I'm naughty. I'm first-time speaker and delegate. Southern Region, seconder in motion 233. Following panorama investigation that was undertaken by the International Consortium of the Investigative Journalism, it had been exposed that 11.5 million from the database of the world's 4th biggest offshore law firm. It exposed many of the British politicians of linking with family and friends financial association. That also was linked to devastation of the Carillion construction company that was linked to former Prime Minister David Cameron Advisory Board. Congress, we are calling on our union executive to lobby the Labour Party to ensure that clear transparency of members of Parliament and public life to uphold the 7 principles of public life. Congress, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. 234.
Vice President, Congress, Karen Rowling, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Moving motion 234 on councillor pay and conditions. Being a local government councillor is a demanding and often thankless job. They're the decision makers for how local authorities spend their budgets, and Labour councillors up and down the country are currently having to implement swinging Tory cuts and stand in the firing line from disillusioned voters who don't understand that councils' budgets have been slashed to the bone, with many losing over 50% of their revenue. Most councillors are dedicated public servants who have to juggle their duties with other jobs, as in most local authority areas, a councillor's pay alone is not enough to live on, and when accounting the hours that a good councillor puts in, falls far short of even the minimum wage. Councillors are not categorised as being employed. Their salary is classed as an allowance designed to cover expenses and costs incurred through their duties, yet they pay tax and Class 1 national insurance contributions in the same way as any other employed person would. In 2014, the Tory government changed the law and abolished councillors' access as taxpayers to contributing to pension schemes. This has left councillors in limbo, unable to plan for their futures, with some having to make tough decisions and stand down from their roles because they simply cannot afford to have no provision for their retirement. The GMB are trying to encourage more ordinary working people to become councillors, and rightly so. Councils should be made up of people who understand the real world, who have compassion and understanding for people's everyday struggles, and who will always fight to get them the best deal because they truly understand what matters to them and what their priorities are. How, though, do you sell a role to somebody and encourage them to enter public service when you know that you're effectively limiting their future solvency by doing so? Congress, I ask you to support this motion to support councillors in being recognised with full employment rights and to have access to pension schemes the same as every other working person. I move.
Thank you, Mel. Second it.
Acting President, hello Congress. I am Sean Thompson from Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, Sheffield S38 branch. I'm a virgin. First time speaker, first time delegate. I am seconding motion 234 regarding councillor pay and conditions. At a time when this Conservative government is encouraging and forcing individuals to make pension provision, it seems ludicrous that the local government minister Brandon Lewis abolished councillors and elected mayors in England access to the local government pension scheme from April 2014, whilst police and crime commissioners, Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish councillors retain access. From April 2003, regulations were introduced by the Labour government allowing councillors to be members of a local government pension scheme at the discretion of the local authority on the basis that many councillors had lower occupational or personal pensions than they would otherwise have as a result of their commitment to public duties and in recognition for the work they carry out for their communities, sacrificing paid working hours and family time. The Local Government Association described the decision to scrap pensions for councillors as a kick in the teeth. MPs get a salary and a pension, so why not locally elected representatives? Congress, I urge you to support democracy, support councillors' access to the local government pension scheme, and support councillors' employment rights. Congress, I urge you to vote for 234. I second.
Thank you. 235.
President and Congress, Wendy Hall, North Western Irish Region, first-time delegate. I'm totally honoured to be moving motion 235. In 1984, 37 men, unionists, trade unionists like you and me, they spent 1 month in a high-security wing of a prison after being in an industrial dispute for 10 months and occupying part of their work site. They were sentenced to jail in their absence. Now let's take that in their absence. Hearing that story for the first time, you might think, surely that was some far-flung country with a dictatorship and no human rights. But no, this was Camelaird. This was Camelaird, everyone, in Birkenhead, Merseyside, in the United Kingdom, which is meant to be a democracy. There was a dictator, Margaret Thatcher. She hated Merseyside. She hated unionism. Eddie Marnell and these men, they fought for over 30 years, and they've been exhausting all legal options. Some of them have actually passed away, and they're not going to be here forever. Now, you might look at me and say, if you know me, I work for the ambulance service. Why would Wendy Hall be bothered about this? Well, I'm very bothered, and in fact, we all should be bothered. I'm a Birkenhead girl, born and bred. I have several generations of ancestry that were in Camelairds and were boilermakers, and they were also trade unionists. It's actually in my DNA. Now, if you're looking for something with a lack of human rights, an infringement of civil liberties, and an injustice, I think the history of this motion says it all. Now, since December 2014, Eddie Marnell, who was one of my heroes, has asked at every CEC meeting that he has attended for one of our sponsored MPs to ask the question at Prime Minister's Question Time, why has there been no apology? Is this too much to ask when there was a question at Question Time about irritable seagulls in Brighton? Does that take priority over this injustice? You know, the ambulance service is in my heart, but the fight for justice for the 37 men of Camelaird who had this injustice against them in 1984 is my heart. Congress, I emphatically move.
Thank you, Wendy. Seconder. Two, three, five, seconder. Formally. Thank you. Composite 18.
Vice President, Congress, Linda Sarecchia, Northern Region, moving Composite 18, defence spending. Congress, the government is committed to spending 2% of our GDP on defence. However, we still have the situation where ships have been scrapped and aircraft carriers have no UK planes on, where in fact we have to lease them from France, where we have an army that is short on numbers and where we have jets that are 40 years old and need to be replaced. Congress. In our region, we have the Barrow Shipyard, which is recognised as one of the best in the world. The workers at Barrow, the GMB members at the Barrow Yard, have some of the highest skill levels anywhere on the planet for building submarines. Congress. It takes just under 10 years to build and ensure the safe delivery of a submarine. In the Dreadnought submarine programme, there are 4 of them on order from the government. In other words, 40 years' worth of work for GMB members, their families, and the community of South Cumbria. The supply chain across the UK is vast, so a future Labour government is going to have to come off the fence. Does it support defence or not? Does it support GMB members and their communities or not? The level of commercial, technical, and graduate areas that are providing apprenticeship schemes means our younger members and their families will have jobs for decades to come. The simple fact is
that you cannot turn off the tap on defence skills and overnight turn them into civilian use. In the Northern region, we've had that approach. That is why so many yards are empty. Our members are working offshore. We need safety and security. That is what is at stake, Congress. Please support I Move.
Thank you, Linda. Seconder.
Elaine Morgan, Wales and South West Region. First-time delegate and first-time speaker at Congress. Seconding Composite 18 on the Strategic Defence Review. Vice President, Congress. In the very uncertain and volatile world in which we now all live, it's imperative that this country is able to deal effectively with any threats of aggression made by other countries. To be able to do that, we must have the best armed forces possible. It is not a time to be talking about cuts, but about the need for money and more money to maintain Britain's defence capabilities. Although counter-terrorism and cybersecurity are key threats, it's important that the Ministry of Defence does not become a junior partner in the intelligence agencies when spending allocations are made. Ensuring our armed forces are adequately funded is not only common sense for national security, but for the good of our own economy. Treasury spending on defence is all too often seen as a pure cost and a burden upon our national finance. That presumption is wrong. Our defence industries not only provide the high-quality jobs in thousands of small businesses across the country, but they also produce the valuable spin-offs of the wider economy and significant export earnings. We cannot neglect our defences. Our armed forces are an integral part of our overall military capability and capacity. Spending on these forces would make us both safer and richer, whereas expenditure cuts would undermine the services upon which our security relies. Congress, our defence force must not retreat, but invest in the future. I second.
Thank you, Elaine. Could I now call on Brian Farr to give a report for the CEC?
Vice President, Congress. Brian Farr speaking on behalf of the CEC, speaking on motion 228, which the CEC is asking to be withdrawn. On motion 232, we are supporting with a qualification, and on motion 234, which we are also supporting with a qualification. On motion 228, while this motion has really good intentions, a GMB forum already exists for sharing best practice and looking at political organisations in public services. In the Public Service Section Committee, there is also a subcommittee of the CEC which covers the issues raised, including the Political, European and International Committee, an organisational subcommittee of the CEC. On motion 232, there is already a ministerial code which should prevent government announcements being made in the media prior to being made in Parliament. This needs to be rigorously enforced. However, politicians must be free to use the media for opinion pieces and stories of interest to the public. Our members need to be made aware of the importance to them. Some of the best ways of doing this is using the press and the media. This is the qualification on this motion. On motion 234, councillors play an important role in our local communities, and the best councillors stand up for their values, whether that is on the delivery of services for those who rely on them or the terms and conditions of local government workers. We support the call for councillors to be readmitted to the local government pension scheme. However, for the very reason that we want working people to become councillors and the GMB support members to do just that, we would be concerned if people saw it as a full-time job or were solely attracted by the financial benefits. Being a councillor by design is not permanent. To encourage more working people to take on the role, we need to not treat them like not treat it as a full-time job. Therefore, Congress, we are asking for motion 228 to be withdrawn and for Congress to support motions 232 and 234 with the qualifications I have set out. Thank you, Congress.
Thank you, Brian. We'll now move to the votes. 228 has been withdrawn, so it's 231. The CEC are supporting it. All those in favour show. Any against? That's carried. 232 has been supported with a qualification. Does London agree the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. 233 has been supported by the CEC. All those in favour, please show. Against? That's carried. 234 has been supported with the qualification. Does Yorkshire North Derbyshire agree the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. 235 has been supported by the CEC. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. And Composite 18 has also been supported. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Colleagues, the next one is political Brexit. Now, there's 11 motions in that category, and I'm not going to start it because I won't have time to finish it in time for us to close. So I'm going to move on now to item 12, which is Political and Labour Party. So can I ask for motions 254 and 258 to come to the front, please? And after that, it'll be 13, which is Political Democracy. Could 270 also come to the front, please?
Vice President, Congress, James Dehaney, London Region, first-time delegate. Moving motion 254, political restrictions. Free and fair representation of the people is a cornerstone of democracy and a fundamental human right. For modern government to have legitimacy, it must be open to and reflective of the people it seeks to govern, a mirror of modern society in all of its diversity. 150 years ago, at the very first trade union Congress in Manchester, this might have seemed not just a lofty, but a very radical aspiration. Since then, at no small cost, we've come a very long way, and today it's both commonplace wisdom and day-to-day Labour Party policy. But it might surprise you to learn that in terms of UK electoral law, we're still not quite there yet. At present, the United Kingdom has a deficiency in its democracy by failing to allow full representation in government. It does this by preventing those who work in local government jobs from standing in not only local, but in some cases national elections, preventing them becoming local councillors or MPs. This is what's known as political restriction. The legal basis for these restrictions is to be found in the Local Government Acts 1972 and 1989, and their broad theoretical basis is sound. They're there to avoid conflicts of interests. In any form of governance, to have the same people who make the laws, the legislature, be the same people who enact and enforce the laws, the executive, requires careful handling at best, because at worst it can be a recipe for disaster. Keeping these functions apart is such a fundamental doctrine of government that we give it a special name. We call it the separation of powers. But exactly because society has moved on, that separation is at the heart of why we need a change. Today, as nearly 50 years ago, when the first of those acts was passed, The majority of people who work in local government jobs are not in executive or politically sensitive decision-making roles. What has changed is that 50 years ago, electoral candidates were drawn from a much narrower and often self-selecting band of society, so much so that a blanket ban then may well have had merit. That's clearly not the case today, however. Society's moved on, and the electoral aspirations and expectations of working people has moved along with it. The law hasn't kept up, and it needs to. As at present, it's denying hundreds of our members the right to hold elected office in local government, and for no good practical reason. That's not only unfair to the individuals concerned, it makes our whole society poorer. The law needs to go back to first principles. It needs to put safeguards in place where those safeguards are actually needed. In local government, they should begin at the chief officer grades, as that is where executive and legislative power actually meet. For everyone else, raising the cap in this way would free up many of our members around the country, already doing valuable work in our communities, to stand for election and represent their communities. That's good for them, good for their communities, and good for democracy. We therefore call on government to update the law on political restriction so as to reflect modern social and electoral reality. Congress, I move.
Thank you, James. Seconder.
Tony Chollerton, London Region, seconding motion 254, political restrictions, acting President, Congress. This Congress believes that the current rules restricting who can stand for election are outdated and unfair. The rules state that you cannot be a candidate if at the time of nomination or on polling day that you are employed by a local authority. Understandably, there are offices in local and national government where there would be a conflict of interest, but these posts are generally at a high level. For most workers, and indeed the majority of the people that we represent, there is no such conflict, and therefore the restrictions are not only unnecessary, but they are also very unfair. It simply isn't right that a worker who is carrying out a role that is the same as someone who is not employed by a local authority cannot stand for election when the person outside the authority can. A 2p transfer can change whether a person can or cannot stand for office. For example, a care worker for a local authority does not have the same right as a care worker for a private company or agency. This needs to change. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Anthony. 258.
Vice President, Congress. Matt Lake, London Region, moving motion 258 on Labour Party representation. Congress, the GMB can be proud of its work in encouraging our members to engage, support and become active in the Labour Party, which has led to many of them standing as elected office as local councillors and MPs. Congress, I am sure you're also aware from the news of the number of high-profile cases at national level concerning issues of discipline and complaints within the party. And if you are, it must seem to you that the party has set a set of rules that do not appear to be fit for purpose, with some complaints taking months and even years to be resolved and concluded. What many of you may not know is that this is mirrored up and down the country at a local and regional level, with constituency Labour parties and regional party structures having to deal with complaints and appeals on a number of levels. This motion is not seeking to pass judgment on any of those cases, but to rather to try and ensure that the party's disciplinary process and procedures for party members, elected councillors and MPs are fit for purpose and conform to a basic understanding of natural justice. If one of our members is disciplined in the workplace, trade unions have won the right to represent them throughout the process. If a member faces legal action, they have the right to be represented by a solicitor or barrister in court. But if they are a Labour Party member and a complaint is raised against them, while they have the right to a hearing and an appeal, they do not have the right to be fully represented in those meetings. The party rulebook currently only allows them to take a friend with them as what is called a silent witness to the disciplinary hearing or appeal. This is not what we, as a trade unionist, understand to be full representation. You all know that full representation should involve the ability to speak and cross-examine on behalf of the person you are representing. Currently, the Labour Party is undertaking a democracy review, which is looking to update the party's rulebook. So, Congress, we are asking the CSE to get fully involved in that review to ensure that the party has a 21st century rulebook that is fit for purpose and allows party members to have complaints dealt with in a reasonable time frame. But more important, that the process upholds the basic right of party members to natural justice and full representation at any hearing they are called to. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Matt. Seconder. Formally, thank you. Can I call upon Ray Dawson of the Northern Region to speak on behalf of the CEC?
Vice President, Congress. Ray Dawson speaking on behalf of the CEC, speaking on motion 258, which the CEC is supporting with a qualification. While the CEC agrees with sentiments of this motion, we must remember that membership entitlements of trade union is for industrial representation and not for political representation. GMB now has recognition for parliamentary staff and will assist members with issues that concern their employment. Therefore, Congress, please support motion 258 with this qualification I have set out. Short and sweet.
Now move to the vote. 254 is being supported by the CEC. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Does the London region accept the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Could I have the mover of 270, please?
Acting President, Congress, Tom Kowalski, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Thank you. Moving motion 270, democracy and voting, current policy. Congress, apathy towards politics is rife. Having stood at the recent local elections as a Labour candidate, I can safely say I've had first-hand experience. This seat was a Lib Dem stronghold, and they stomped to victory as expected. But what we didn't expect was the rest of the result. We didn't realise there was a Tory standing until the count. And despite a valiant campaign by GMB and Labour colleagues, the same Tory who knocked no doors, delivered no election leaflets, and put up no election posters, beat us into third place. Colleagues, it's a good job we've got a sense of humour. But why do I mention this? I mention it because it's further strengthened my belief that political disengagement is damaging our democracy and that the time to open up the democratic process is now. Congress, our 2017 National Policy Guide stated that a call in 2009 to introduce compulsory voting was referred, with advice that if the motion was to be put before Congress, the recommendation would be to oppose. Congress, in the 9 years since that decision, many have grown in political awareness, but there's still much to do in increasing voter engagement, and a full and frank discussion on this element of policy is needed. And so we call upon the CEC to set up a working group to look more deeply into the issues so that progressive policies can be formulated to increase voter engagement in the democratic process. Tory changes to voter registration systems have left close to 800,000 people in a position where they're not utilising their right to vote. The decision to move away from household registration to the individual has helped the accuracy of the electoral register, but it's also resulted in 1.8% dropping off the register completely. Under household registration, one resident could sign up everybody in the household, but the individual voter registration has meant that lots of people realise that they haven't got around to registering only when it's too late. Analysis shows that areas with a high concentration of students, private renters and young adults are particularly in danger of having low registration numbers. Congress, many of those people are our people. There are members who are being adversely affected by Tory policy to make voter engagement more difficult. This barrier could be easily remedied with automatic registration for all eligible voters, and this could form part of a fruitful policy suggestion to improve our democracy. Voter turnout is another issue. At the last general election, it was the highest it's been in 20 years, at 68%. But that still means 30% of people are not exercising their right to vote. As we mark the 100 years since the introduction of the Representation of the People Act, which paved the way for the universal right to vote that we enjoy today, it's vital to educate people as to the sacrifices that were made so that we today can say who we want to represent us. Participating in elections is a right of citizenship, and for some it's seen as a civic responsibility, with some countries introducing compulsory voting. The question for us today, Congress, is not whether this is the answer to the problem, but whether or not the time is right to discuss how to increase voter engagement and whether this may form part of the solution. Comrades, the Tories want us to be disengaged. They want us to think there's no point voting. If people remain disengaged, the Tories and the vested interests they represent remain unchallenged. It is up to us to convince people why voting is so important and the impact it has. We must tackle this disengagement head-on and be unapologetic in discussing as broad a range of ideas as possible to remedy this stain on our democracy. Our forebears fought and often died for a dream that one day our democracy could be truly reflective and voting could be a right for all to enjoy. Congress, let's make that dream a reality now. Please support this motion. Congress, I move. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder.
Philip Hill, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Congress, our proud nation boasts of a parliament which has been the envy of and a model for many other democracies around the world. However, political apathy is still rife within our communities. Thousands of British citizens still do not vote, a right for which many have fought and died. We need to educate these people in the importance of using their votes. I therefore ask this Congress to assist in this task, to start having open, full and frank discussions and educating our membership of the importance of voting. With this in mind, I second this motion.
John MacDonald.
Made it. President Congress, John MacDonald, North Western Irish region. Speaking on behalf of the CEC on motion 270, which the CEC is asking Congress to refer. As the motion correctly points out, a full and frank discussion must take place on this issue. The motion is passionate about the GMB, determine how better to engage the electorate in our nation's democracy. The CEC is asking that this motion be referred to the PEI subgroup to hold full and frank discussions, as we recognise that compulsory voting would increase participation, but there are many hurdles to get over in order to achieve this. Therefore, President, the CEC is asking Congress to refer motion 270 for this reason. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll now go to the vote. Does Yorkshire region accept the reference back? Thank you. All those in favour of 270, please show. Any against? That's carried. Can I ask motion 339 and 340 to come to the front, please? And the mover of 339 to come to the rostrum.
Jan Smith, London Region, President, Congress. Congress, this motion 339 expressed the concerns for our young and future workers, particularly under Brexit. Also with the Tories' desire to reduce all our workers' rights, which we, being me, you, and our forefathers have fought for over the years. Congress, our young generation, during the 2017 elections, they were heavily engaged and motivated in trying to get a Labour government. In fact, Jeremy Corbyn was so impressed, he urged them to join a trade union. We, the GMB, and this Congress, we need to support them by us making 2018-19 the year of the young, which we can lead to increasing our GMB membership. Within this group, they are our future. The future for the young. I move, please support.
Thank you, Jan. Seconder.
Heather Hamblin, London Region, President, Congress, General Secretary. Congress, I am pleased to second motion 339, especially with the hard times ahead. We and our young persons faced with the looming of Brexit. Congress, please support this motion by showing them we, the GMB, make 2018 to 2019 the year for our future, being young persons. I move.
Thank you, Heather. 340.
Matt Buckley, Midlands and East Coast Region, moving motion 340 when age really is a number. Vice President, Congress, I would like to call on the GMB to lobby the TUC on the issue of the huge cost and unfairness of car insurance premiums for young people. The TUC will need to get a commitment from a future Labour government to end that unfairness that the unscrupulous insurance companies are inflicting on the young drivers. On average, young people between the ages of 17 and 25 face a cost of anything from £2,000 to £4,000 per annum to drive a standard 1-litre car.
curfew would unfairly discriminate against night shift workers, as the motion states. CEC supports the campaign for equality on premiums, but accepts that the number of claims for young drivers is higher than those in older age groups, which is a financial constraint for any insurance provider. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking you to support both motion 339 and 340 with the qualifications I've set out.
Thank you, Bill.
Was in his vehicle on a Sunday, he simply moved his van onto the pavement from his driveway so his wife could get her car out. Other drivers are not so lucky. Disciplinaries are going through the roof. We are told that if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. This reasoning is often the defense used by totalitarian regimes when they introduce perceived Big Brother surveillance measures and could well add to the frustration and resentment of employees. They tell us it is not designed to stop you nipping in for a paper or stopping you for a coffee en route, that it will provide a fair and accurate record of your work patterns to help your company manage their vehicle fleet more effectively. But that is exactly what is happening.
Mary, wind up, please.
Yeah. We have members who are crumbling under the stress. They tell us that
Mary,
our right
today, please, wind up.
Okay, so Congress, please support
Mary,
this.
just move the motion. Just say I move.
I move.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
Ben Cook, Midlands and East Coast Region, supporting motion 144. Vice President, Congress. This is an issue that's becoming more prevalent in all sectors. Employers tell you that this technology is designed to improve behaviours and improve health and safety. It is designed to control and to constrict drivers and our members. Whether you are a refuse driver or an Asda home shopping driver, when you step into that vehicle, it always comes with a risk. Adding more stress increases the risk of accidents in an already high-pressure job. Drivers are already under pressure trying to finish their route, their run, or to deliver on time, without having to worry about being micromanaged and disciplined. Please support this motion and please keep our members safe. Congress, I support this motion. I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Mover 146.
It's bright up here. Good afternoon. My name's Karima Kelly from the Southern Region, President and Congress. This is my first time as a delegate and first time speaking. Thank you. I'm moving forward the motion 146, which is childcare and workplace creches. I know it's getting harder out there in the workplace, and for many reasons, we can always be supportive with this motion. If you're a parent and you leave your child, I know it's very difficult for you. So if we could force major companies to deliver childcare packages or have in-house creche facilities, not only would that make it easier, but I think it would also boost the economy, as the best of both worlds could be achieved. New mothers who are breastfeeding can still be at work, more relaxed, knowing that their child is nearby. And in the workplace creches, also knowing that single parents can utilise the support provided financially. This will also allow them back into the workplace without companies having to re-employ or retrain new staff. Also, this potentially will safeguard the child carer and get benefits deserved, such as holidays or sick pays, and better pay. Congress, I hope you can support this motion. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague. Seconder.
Congress, Vice President Helen O'Connor speaking for the Southern Region in support of motion 146. It used to be commonplace for trade unions to include childcare in bargaining. Hard-won rights are now being rolled back as these demands slip off our agenda. Working-class parents are told we have freedom to choose childcare, but this is not our experience. Few employers have workplace creches, and if some do, the waiting lists are long and the manager's kid jumps up the queue. Childcare places are so expensive that parents choose between working for next to nothing or you give up work altogether while the kids are young. The marketisation of childcare, lack of good quality, affordable and accessible childcare carries a hidden cost. Employers end up with less productive workers when parents are worrying about childcare and finances. The young people working in childcare industry find themselves underpaid, undervalued and working in overcrowded conditions as wages are driven down to boost profits. As one ex-nursery worker said to me, I felt like I was herding cats, I wasn't helping the kids, I left. Overcrowded conditions and a lack of attention being given to children causes harm that can last a lifetime. There is a rise in ADD, ADHD, Asperger's and self-harm amongst very young people. There is evidence that the children of the poorest in society grow up to become cannon fodder for the prisons, addiction services and psychiatric services. Raising children is a contribution to the future of society. The GMB must campaign to demand that employers pick up some of the costs and the responsibility for the greater good of society. We all win if working class children get the benefit of decent care and education from a very young age. Let's fight for all in society to be winners and not losers. Support the motion.
Thank you, Helen. 149.
Ian Kemp, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, moving motion 149. Acting President, Congress. The GMB has a proud record in supporting the right of workers to join a trade union and in the right of those trade unions to take part in industrial action. But in supporting those rights, there's a group of workers we seem to ignore. Those workers are those who wear a uniform, namely members of the armed forces and the police. As trade unions, we have an ambivalent attitude, not to say at times hostile attitude, to the armed forces and the police. Throughout history, from Peterloo to Orgreave, remember our martyrs created whenever the state has mobilised their forces against us. Yet within that same history, both the armed forces and police have taken action over what, as trade unionists, we recognise as legitimate grievances. From the Spithead Mutiny of 1797 to the Salerno Mutiny of 1943, from the police strikes of 1918 and 1919 to the RAF strikes of 1946, there's a history of workers in uniform engaging in industrial action. And let's not forget, comrades, that the ideals of this great movement of ours were articulated by the rank and file of Cromwell's New Model Army. This history, coupled with the present-day austerity, show that we need to allow the armed forces and police to join in and be active in trade unions. Now, I realise, comrades, that some of you would feel uneasy about allowing the force of the state to join our ranks. For years, they've been the Tories' boot boys. I mean, I can remember going on marches and showing solidarity on picket lines, chanting Maggie Thatcher's boot boys. But, comrades, we have a unique opportunity to exploit the failure of this government to keep the police and armed forces sweet. With a government that's treated forces personnel and police officers with the same contempt they've treated all public sector workers. This government has presided over manpower reductions, increased workloads and the reduction in real pay levels. And then, particularly our ex-servicemen and women, when they leave their career, leaving them high and dry. We've now got an opportunity to step in and show the police and armed forces that they are workers just like any other worker. We can show them that there's an alternative to them being the tools of a small elite. We can show that they have more in common with us than the bosses who use and abuse them. Now, I'm not naive enough, comrades, to believe that union rights on their own for members of the armed forces and the police is going to solve all problems. But, comrades, it's a start. They deserve better than the glorified staff associations that are the Police Federation and the moribund Armed Forces Federation. Comrades, support motion 149. Let's join countries as diverse as France and Serbia, the Netherlands and Latvia, and give our workers in uniform trade union rights.
Thank you, Ian. Seconder.
Good afternoon. Janine Moyes from Yorkshire and North Derbyshire. First time speaker, first time delegate. I'm here seconding motion 149, union rights for workers in uniform. Following strikes in 1918-19, when British police refused to go on duty, the government at the time introduced the Police Act, as well as the Police Federation. The Police Act prohibits police officers from joining ordinary trade unions to defend pay and working conditions, etc., because it is deemed as that it would pose an exceptional public safety risk, not dissimilar to the one that we are experiencing across all of the public services due to the austerity cuts. After my research, I found that there is a phenomenon apparently known as the blue flu. Surely the hoops that unions have to go through before strike action can be taken would be more easily managed than an unexpected sudden blue flu epidemic. Likewise, UK armed forces are not legally entitled to enlist in a trade union or to strike under the Queen's regulations, again for security reasons. Strangely, our NATO partners in the Netherlands don't believe that unionisation undermines their military effectiveness. Some countries have long-standing arrangements for members of the armed forces to join trade unions. Some have granted this in recent years, and most have democratically decided that they will not use strike action. Democracy. Union rights for workers in uniform. Please support.
Thank you, Janine. Can I now call on Kevin Buchanan, the CEC Speaker from Scotland, to respond.
Acting President, Congress, Kevin Buchanan, speaking on behalf of the CEC. Congress, the CEC asks you to support motions 144 and 146 with a qualification in each case, and to refer motion 149. Dealing firstly with motion 144, it is vital that we are constantly vigilant and effective in protecting our members against any form of unfair tracking by employers. Our members should not have to worry about getting behind the wheel of their vehicles, feeling threatened by possible unfair disciplinary action. The qualification is that the GMB is already very involved in negotiations with employers across the country around the introduction and usage of vehicle tracking. It is important that we have a clear policy that vehicle tracking should not be misused. However, it is an integral part of industrial relations. Consequently, a specific investigation, we believe, is not necessary. We should encourage our reps networks across the Union who deal with these issues regularly to share their experiences with each other in order to develop best practice in dealing with this issue. Turning to motion 146, Congress, the CEC fully supports ensuring that childcare provision should be a part of the equality bargaining and negotiation agenda. This is covered in the CEC Special Report to Congress on equality organising. Childcare workers are also in the front line of looking after some of the most vulnerable people in our society and should be treated as such. The qualification is to clarify that whilst childcare has a significant equality impact for women, childcare is an issue that matters for all working families, including fathers and same-sex parents. With regards to motion 149, as has been pointed out by the movers, police officers have trade unions throughout the UK, respective police federations in England and Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, MOD, British Transport and Civil Nuclear Constabulary. The police are, of course, banned from taking strike action. As was mentioned, the British Armed Forces Federation was also established as a military staff association in 2006, but appears to have had very, very limited activity in recent years. The right of armed service men and women to join a trade union is prohibited by Queen's regulations, though these allow service personnel to become members of civilian trade unions in order to enhance their trade skills or prepare for resettlement into civilian life. In view of this, the CEC recommends that the motion be referred to allow further investigation before adopting policy. Changes to the bans on strike action for the police, armed forces and indeed prison officers should require significant changes to primary legislation and may not be high on the list of priorities for an incoming Labour government. Congress, consequently, the CEC therefore asks you to support motions 144 and 146 with the qualifications I've outlined and to refer motion 149. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Middle and East Coast region, agree the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Does the Southern region agree the qualification? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. And does the Yorkshire region agree reference back? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. We'll now move on, and I'll ask Ellen Johnson to give SOC report number 3. Ellen.
Vice President Congress, Helen Johnson, Midland and East Coast Region, SOC Chair, moving a supplement to SOC report number 1. Election of President. Congress, there will be an election for President tomorrow, Tuesday the 5th of June. The SOC has been advised that the election will be contested. The procedure for the election will be as set out in the CEC special report. A copy of this process has been circulated to delegates. The outline of the process is as follows. The General Secretary will announce the names of the candidates just prior to the close of business today. Tomorrow morning, each candidate will be entitled to make an election address prior to the distribution of ballot papers. The number of minutes allowed for this will be up to 5 minutes. To allow for this, the SOC is recommending that Congress starts 30 minutes early at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning. At 10 a.m., the General Member Auditor will deliver ballot papers to each Regional Secretary, and the Regional Secretary will issue the ballot papers to each delegate who is entitled to vote. Ballot papers will be issued to CEC members by the General Secretary via the Executive Officer. Once completed, ballot papers should be placed in one of the 2 ballot boxes which will be placed on the platform at the front of the hall. The ballot boxes will be supervised by the tellers. Voting will close at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 5th of June, when the General Member Auditor will take the ballot papers and count the votes. The result will be announced to Congress after this. Vice President Congress, I move the supplement to SOC report number 1.
Thank you, Helen. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. I'll now ask the General Secretary, as Congress is a special report on the GMB review of elections was carried this morning, I'll now invite the General Secretary to announce the nominated candidates.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. So we have 5 candidates standing, and I will do them in alphabetical order just so that I can remain utterly impartial, of course. So the first candidate is Sheila Bearcroft from Wales and South West Region. The next candidate is David Hope, North West and Irish Region. The next candidate is Jude Minery, GMB Scotland. The next candidate is Andy Newman, GMB Southern Region. And the 5th candidate is Barbara Plant, Southern Region. They are the 5 candidates that will be on the ballot paper tomorrow, Malcolm.
Thank you for that, Tim. Congress, as we have a packed agenda and we now have an election to carry out, tomorrow morning's session, if you've all agreed, will start at 9 a.m. in the morning for the candidates to address Congress. As reported by the SOC, there will be a bucket collection as you leave the hall in aid of guide dogs for the blind, organised by the Scottish region. Please give generously, and could the regional organiser please inform the SOC of the total amount raised so this can be reported to Congress. And the final announcement today is the security staff at the venue have asked that you don't leave any bags in the hall tonight. I'll now close Congress and see you all at 9 in the morning. Thank you. I'll pass it again.
5:28.
Yeah. Cracked it, pals. Yeah.